Well, folks, we got a jam-packed video for you right now. Look, earlier this week, we had our first video of 2026, and it dealt with rumors around the Legend of Zelda, the brand new 3D Zelda, and obviously dealt with just detailing some details about where I have been and why I haven't been around. And I'm still not really back to a full work schedule. You guys can know just by the fact I didn't get a video out yesterday, and it wasn't for a lack of news. As you're going to see in this video, we have a jam-packed show, a ton of news, the most stories I've maybe covered ever in a single video. There's so much to go over. We got rumors, we got leaks, we got actual news, we have announcements from Nintendo, new information on upcoming games. Look, 2026 is already shaping up to be a jam-packed year. How jam-packed? We're not just talking for Switch 2. We're not just talking for Xbox, Microsoft PC. Thunderstash Gaming went ahead and dropped a video looking forward to 100 plus of the best video games coming out this year. If you want to get a nice hour and a half, that's right, that's how long it takes them, an hour and a half recap of all of the games that you should be looking for, from everything from indie to AAA to first party and beyond. So shout out to Thunderstash. Man, that video, it's really good. I watched it earlier today. That said, folks, we are giving away 3 copies of Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate. You can enter through the link down in the pinned comment or the description. And it is 2026, so I guess one of our main goals, and I say I guess, it might be far-fetched, I don't know. I'm hoping to hit 200,000 subscribers this year. We're obviously pretty short of that, right? We're at 160,000. We got to get to 161 first and keep going. We'll celebrate every 1,000 we get like we always have in a community post. That said, let's go ahead and just dive into this news. And the first story we have here is actually the updated Famitsu charts. And the headline here over at Nintendo Life has, hey, Pokemon Legends EA surpasses 1 million sales on Switch 2. That is a pretty interesting headline, but we're just going to go into the data that all comes from Famitsu here. So you see Mario Kart World #1 with 94,645 units sold there. You see Legend ZA for Switch at 59,000, Kirby Air Riders for Switch 2 at 47,000, Legend ZA at 46,000, Momotaro Denso 2 at number 5 for Switch at 32,000, Momotaro Denso 2 for Switch 2 at 30,000. You can see you're starting to see the gaps close between Switch and Switch 2 as more and more Switch 2 units keep getting sold. Donkey Kong Bonanza at number 7, Minecraft at 8, Super Mario Party Jamboree Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, Jamboree TV at number 9, and Animal Crossing New Horizons at 10. Again, a very Nintendo-dominated top 10. I mean, these are mostly Nintendo published titles besides 3 of them. So that's pretty wild. That being said, we also have to get to the console sales as well. Switch 2 is number 1 again with another 200,000 units, I believe. And correct me if I'm wrong because I've been a little out of the loop. I believe this is like the 5th or 6th straight week in Japan of over 200,000 units. It definitely appears Nintendo has been sending a steady supply of Switch 2 to Japan finally for this holiday season. Hopefully it continues to start 2026 because there's definitely a strong demand for Switch 2 out in the land of the rising sun. Look at that. It's almost at 3.8 million units already in Japan alone, and we're still within the first fiscal year of Nintendo Switch 2. So pretty impressive stuff. And these are actually systems sold through. That's what's really cool about the Japanese data. These are actually like retail sales, not Nintendo's units sold to retail, but actual units sold from retail to consumer. That's what Famitsu's are. It's pretty cool. You see Switch OLED at number 2 at 14,000. PlayStation 5 Digital Edition at number 3 at 13,500. That has now crossed 1 million units. I did that probably a few weeks ago. And then you see Switch Lite at number 4 with 11,000. See Switch coming in at number 5 at nearly 7,000 there. PlayStation 5 at 4,000, roughly. PlayStation 5 Pro at 1.6 thousand. And Xbox Series X Digital Edition being up in the hundreds. Pretty good for them. 209 units for that digital edition. All right, so that's really cool. Congrats to everyone there. Looks pretty cool. You see PlayStation 4 kind of bringing up the rear there a little bit with 15 units. So, it is what it is, but there's the Famitsu sales charts. Again, we have so many stories to get through. We're going to try to fly here. This next story is actually kind of a double whammy story. Rumors, but also like news, because we're first going to hit Necro Felipe Lima. Runs Universal Nintendo, and he's had a few leaks corrected in the past and some stuff not right. And he posted this. These were predictions, but the thing is, one of those predictions came right. 2026 is almost knocking at the door, and these are my predictions right off the bat. January, in the second week, which is what we're in right now, it's almost knocking on the door, so it's going to be Mario Tennis Fever news. And then the second half of January, so the last 2 weeks, he was predicting a general Nintendo Direct, and then he said, Pokemon Presents will be on February 27th, which does kind of line up with Pokemon Day and everything. It does actually make for a good day to reveal Gen 10. But normally Nintendo has their directs in January. The reason we're even talking about this, though, and the possibility of there being a direct somehow this month, is this Mario Tennis Fever news. Because today, which again, we're in the second week of January, we have Mario Tennis Fever news. A brand new overview trailer dropped. In fact, I'm just going to play it here for you guys while I read some of the details off here, because we learned a lot about this game, and it does seem that Nintendo has been listening when it comes to Mario Tennis. At least Camelot, the team that makes the game, seemingly is listening to all the feedback they got from Aces, because there's what at least it looks on the surface to be a ton of content in this game. So Nintendo has this 5-minute thing you're already seeing, but the big focus right from the jump is the titular Fever rackets, which grant special power-ups to your shots or movement. The trailer gives us another look at the flame shot and the ice racket, but there's also the enemy summoning pokey racket, the helping hand shadow racket, and the speedy golden dash racket. Some of these can even deal damage to your opponents, because one thing that tennis is really missing is pain. But these Fever effects aren't the be-all end-all, as explained in the new overview. If you could send the Fever ball back before it bounces, the effect will be sent back with it. So lots of tension there. Those after something a little more standard can play in classic rules, which does get rid of the Fever rackets and puts more focus on the new slide and leap shots. Let's get a closer look at more of those teased 38 playable characters too, with Goomba, Nabbit, and Baby Waluigi getting some time in the spotlight. And some of this stuff, the baby ones in particular, are related to the story mode. And those with the keen eye will also spot the likes of Dry Bones, Bowser Jr., and more. And as for game modes, tournament mode is back, which that one really excites me. I was a little worried that might be a Mario Tennis Aces, exclusive mode, and it's not. No, they're actually bringing that back. That was the only real, true, good online mode with Mario Tennis Aces. People really enjoyed it. We just wanted more. Well, that mode is back, and guess what? That's not all. There's a challenge-based trial towers, and obviously the baby adventure mode that we saw in the initial reveal. And yes, game share is also enabled in this one, so you can play with friends online, even if they don't own a copy of the game. In fact, guys, you can play with people on Switch 1. If you have one copy and you're in local, you can have, your copy and 3 Switch 1s, and all 4 of you guys are playing this game together. So really good to see that support in here. Honestly, it's a really good trailer. If you guys want to catch the full thing and all the audio and all the commentary, you guys should obviously go check it out. We'll put a link down in the description. Next up, though, we got to get to, well, how about some Call of Duty rumors for Switch 2? So rumor, Call of Duty's Nintendo release is apparently on target for 2026. So I would assume that this would either be Warzone and or this year's Call of Duty, maybe both. So there was an update here. We'll go to the original story because this happened while I was gone. The original story here came from Jez Corden. It says the first Call of Duty Switch version is nearly done and launching in a few months. This makes me feel like Warzone. Like Pure Xbox says, we're going to guess it's probably Warzone, because the contract that Nintendo signed says that they need to be day and date and feature complete. Warzone, however, is a forever game, so it came out before, so like it would just make sense for Warzone to come over. So I kind of feel like that's what Jez was referencing. But we have an update here a couple days ago saying, in a new report from Windows Central this week covering Xbox year ahead and beyond, the site's executive editor Jez Corden has once again reiterated that Call of Duty series will drop into Nintendo Switch 2 in 2026, fulfilling Microsoft's promises to regulators. And again, I'm assuming the first one to drop, that's supposed to be, supposedly in a few months, as was teased here by Jez originally, it's probably Warzone. And then obviously we look forward to hopefully getting the next mainline Call of Duty installment this November. Hopefully we get that as well on Nintendo Switch 2, because that's the one that I think most people are super stoked for, is just getting our regular Call of Duty releases. Now we're going to talk about a game that we should just expect to come to Switch 2, because the other 2 came to Nintendo Switch. Of course, we're talking about Wolfenstein. That's right, baby. Wolfenstein 3 is reportedly in the works at Machine Games. And it's bringing Indiana Jones to Switch 2 this year as well. So we already know about the Indiana Jones news. That's from last year. But the Wolfenstein series could be making a return in the future, according to a new report about what to expect from Xbox this year and beyond. Windows Central's executive editor, Jez Corden, says he has heard Wolfenstein 3 is on the cards to coincide with Amazon's new Wolfenstein television series. Nothing else about this game is mentioned in the report. Kotaku has confirmed it's true. So Kotaku's also backing what Jez said here. Kotaku can confirm it's true from our own sources. So Kotaku can confirm it's true from our own sources. The Swedish developer, which most recently knocked it out of the park with 2024's Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, is returning for the Nazi blasting franchise for the first time since 2019's Wolfenstein Youngblood. YouTube, do not get mad at me. I was just reading a quote. I know when you use that one word, sometimes you get frisky here. I'm just reporting the news, okay? And that's what the Wolfenstein series is all about. But more stuff is coming. How about this? IGN Poland says they knew about the rumored Witcher 3 DLC years ago and could introduce a whole new region. So obviously it's in Polish. So we're just using the quotes here that are in English on My Nintendo News. It says, at the time, we were receiving signals that the team was fascinated by a completely different direction than the frozen north. There were many indications the developers were keenly interested in exploring Zekarkania. Many years have passed since we first heard about the DLC and came to the conclusion that it would most likely take us to the desert. The studio's internal plans may have changed many times, and the folder labeled Zekarkania may have been replaced with one labeled Kovir or something else entirely. Basically, they just had some access, some Datamine stuff in the past, but it does look like, there's probably some Witcher 3 DLC, probably to help bridge the gap to Witcher 4 or bridge a story gap that might need to be bridged in order to get to that. Next up, it looks like a brand new Life is Strange game is coming. These games have, been on Nintendo, so we should expect this one as well. Life is Strange Reunion has been leaked by Peggy. The Peggy rating says this: Chloe Price was Max Caulfield's partner in time. Losing her is Max's greatest regret. Now Chloe has come to Caledon University, haunted by nightmares and impossible memories. Chloe needs help. Max is already in crisis. In 3 days, a deadly inferno will destroy the campus. So there you go. I'm not a big Life is Strange guy, but I know a lot of you guys do enjoy the series. So again, there is another one coming, and I just wanted to point that out. Peggy, hey, don't know if it's going to come this year, but it definitely looks promising. Now, Jez Corden had some other stuff going on right here, and he talked about Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3 Remastered. Now, one thing we have to remember is Fallout 4 is already coming to Nintendo Switch 2. That's already been announced. So I would venture to guess that all brand new Fallout games moving forward, or remasters or remakes, would probably come to Switch 2 as well. Here's what he said. Some have been wondering if a mysterious countdown on the Fallout TV show's Amazon Prime website is hinting at a shadow drop for a new Fallout game or remaster. I'm told this is not the case. However, we are eventually getting a Fallout 3 remake in the vein of Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered, as well as Fallout New Vegas on top. And guess what, guys? That's not the only source we have on some of this, because Nate the Hate has also come out to say the Fallout 3 Remaster is still planned. So we have multiple sources, at least on Fallout 3. He says Fallout 3 Remaster is planned for release, but I'm not certain on a reveal window for it. However, and Jez Corden didn't say it's like coming this year or anything, just that they're in the works. So it's possible that, like, hey, we're getting Fallout 4 on Switch 2, maybe the Fallout 3 in New Vegas, maybe that's like a 2027 thing, but you never know, because obviously we don't know about the development cycles. Now, yesterday on the Nintendo podcast, I came out and we were making predictions. We were predicting 2026 for Nintendo, third parties, accessories. Do we think a Switch 2 Lite is coming, games, all that stuff, right? Well, I predicted that Nintendo was going to release brand new Joycon 2 colors this year, and it took less than 12 hours for Nintendo to confirm it. As you enjoy Mario Tennis Fever, you'll also have the opportunity to give the Nintendo Switch 2 a new look. The first new colored Joycon 2 controllers, light purple and light green, also arrived February 12th. You can see them here. Obviously, I think they actually look kind of good. Nintendo's pretty good with these color things. Still sticking with the black, but changing the splash of color. Will that look weird when they're detached from your Switch 2? I guess maybe, because the stickers inside are orange and blue. Maybe they'll offer new stickers to replace those if you want. I don't know. They are $100, which again, I know it's expensive, but so are the normal Joy-Con 2s. So not really shocked about the price. Yeah, am I going to pick them up? I don't really have a need for an extra set of Joy-Cons, but hey, maybe. We'll see. I do like the colors. The colors look really nice. All right. Now we got to get to a story that is a little negative about how Switch 2 did during the holidays, but I'm going to explain a little caveat about this that maybe it's not as like dire as it's being made out to be. But this comes from VGC. So Switch 2 sales slowed over Christmas, down 35% in the US compared to Switch 1 launch. Now, I do want to note, we don't actually have any Circana data, and Matt Piscatella came out to say he hasn't even seen the data, and he's the one that presents it publicly. So this data that they're talking about, this 35% decline, is not based on Circana, which is the only place that has reliable data. So I just want to keep this in mind. But I do suspect the Switch 2 sales are going to be down compared to Switch 1's 2017 holiday. I do actually think that is a thing. Could be 35%, could be 25%, could be 50%. I don't know. I'm not so keen on the percentage here, but I am keen on the report because, again, this is a story out there and we got to even cover the negatives. So as we come down here, it says that's according to the Game Business, which reports that following a record-breaking launch earlier in the year, Switch 2 sales in the US over the holiday period of November to December which is kind of weird. It's actually October, November, December. But anyways, we're down around 35% compared with the Switch 1, managed during the same period in 2017. There's a similar picture in the UK where the Switch 2 sales for the last 8 weeks of the year were 16% lower. And I would argue 35% lower and 16% lower are not similar numbers. One's more than double the other. So similar, maybe to a lesser degree. That would have been the language I used. Anyways, lower than the Switch 1 in the same period of its life cycle, according to the Nielsen IQ data. However, when sales of the original Switch are included, sales of the Nintendo hardware are actually up 7% compared to the same period in 2017. Now, again, this is obviously including Switch 1 sales. In France, Switch 2 sales in 2025 were over 30% lower than what Switch 1 achieved in its first year, according to TGB, which is a surprise for a market that's typically one of Nintendo's strongest in Europe. The slowing Christmas sales come with the context that Switch 2 experienced a record-breaking launch, selling over 3.5 million units in just 4 days last June, over 10 million by September. So far, the console is comfortably outselling its predecessor. And you can kind of see a general chart here showing that. It's just based on currently known data. Of course, there's been more sales since this data, but Nintendo hasn't provided the official updates. Stock has also been readily available. Yes, it has been fairly easy to get. So we're just going to leave it at that. One thing I do want to note about this story, though, is compared to back in 2017, Nintendo was doing two things. One, they were packing the year with games because they were coming off their worst generation ever, both sales-wise and financially in the video game space. But setting that aside, they also had a massive system seller in Mario Odyssey for the holiday season, exclusively on Switch. You couldn't play it anywhere else. The exclusives this year for the holiday period for Nintendo were Kirby Air Riders, a spin-off Kirby game from the GameCube era, and Age of Imprisonment. Look, those games are incredible. I wouldn't call either of them system sellers, and appropriately, they probably weren't system sellers, and that played a role in Switch 2 maybe not flying off shelves. However, Nintendo's in a different position now than they were in 2017. As I said, they were coming off their worst generation ever, and they always believed that video games sell software, so they really jam-packed that first 9 months trying to prove to themselves and to the world that, hey, if we deliver games, people will buy our systems, because that was an issue with droughts on 3DS and the Wii U. Well, now that Nintendo is actually in a better position and has consistent sales and success, they're not as urgent to have to push all their content out now. What this really means is that the big titles are going to be more spread out throughout the generation, which actually is going to create more consistent year-over-year sales and more consistent consumer happiness. If you guys remember, for how jam-packed 2017 was, 2018 was actually pretty light until Smash Bros. Came out all the way in December of that year. I'm not saying there weren't games that had come out in between. There were, but they weren't like big smash hit games until Smash Bros. So yeah, and to avoid a thing like that where you have a whole year where you're waiting all year for one big smash hit game, Nintendo now has things spread out. We had Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza last year along with the other exclusive games, and that's all in a 6 to 7 month period. And now you get to hear, and we're getting Mario Tennis, and we'll see what other games come out the rest of this year. Obviously, we know about Fire Emblem, but there's probably more unannounced games coming in 2026, so including another 1 or 2 big system sellers. So yeah, I actually like the idea of spreading things out a bit more throughout the generation and creating more consistency year over year. I also think that's really great for us as gamers because it can be overwhelming at times. If you only play Nintendo games, and I know some of you only play Nintendo games, it can be overwhelming when you have so many coming out in a short period like 2017, even though back then it felt quite incredible since we were coming off generations with huge gaps. All right. Anyways, I'm not that fretted about the holiday sales. Everything was down across the board. We'll see if that bounces back. There's some economic reasons involved as well. We're not going to go over. All right. Next up, Nate the Hate was at it again. And Nate the Hate was basically just saying something that is more of something that makes us have a sigh of relief. The insider claimed that dev kit distribution has largely resolved. Come down here and you can see, down here, Nate Drake recently commented on the situation. So this type of statement involves happening with the fact that a team within a company like Activision had access to the development kit doesn't mean that the entire company and all teams had access to a development kit. The fact that the THP S3 plus 4 arrived on Switch 2 within the launch window doesn't mean that the team that did the Call of Duty port or any Activision Blizzard King game also had access to the dev kit. In the case of Call of Duty, it also doesn't mean they received the development kit too late, just late enough that they couldn't finish work to release the game sooner. The situation regarding the delivery of the development kit has been largely resolved. So what he's basically saying is, as we're here in 2026, the development kits are pretty easy to get. So that's good. So I kind of figured Nintendo might slow roll it to start the gen. It's what they did. It's what reports said they were doing. And now Nate Drake, etc. is all like, yeah, okay, we're good now. So yeah, I guess we'll see. Obviously, if this year we start getting tons of games from third parties, 2027 tons of games is a pretty good indicator that dev kits are not that difficult to get anymore. All right. Next up, we have to discuss a game that many of you told me would never, ever come to Switch 2. But it looks like you might be wrong. Data mining. That's right. Data mining, I believe out of China, suggests the possibility of Monster Hunter Wilds coming to Switch 2. Basically, they're doing things with this. They're using DLSS or see the NS2 designation, all these little leaks and all of that. This doesn't necessarily mean it's ever going to come to Switch 2, but it does mean work has literally been done on a Switch 2 version of Monster Hunter Wilds. And just to give you like a kind of an idea of how it might run or something like that, based on the specs for the Switch 2 version in the actual dock, we're going to look at something. This is actually a little blurry. And now this is just kind of a look here as it says, Chinese group responsible for the game's data mining released video simulating what the gameplay would be like in handheld mode on the Switch 2. Now this is just based on data mining presets for Switch 2. And it's going to be a little blurry because again, we're on X, where the quality for videos isn't like super high. But you can kind of get an idea that, it's running fairly smoothly. Of course, this isn't running on native hardware. So like this is a fairly consistent 30 FPS running, but this doesn't look too bad. I got to say, if this is roughly how Monster Hunter Wilds runs on Switch 2, this would be kind of great. But again, these are not one-to-one comparisons, and Switch 2 hardware cannot really be like entirely emulated by like, a PC or whatever. But anyways, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there as a ongoing story of Monster Hunter Wilds. We can maybe watch out for that coming. Next up, though, we do have another story about a game that we already know is coming to Switch 2 and some of the options coming to that game. So we're over on Universal Nintendo again, where we see Grid Legends Deluxe Edition will feature enhanced graphics options and GameCube controller support on the Switch 2. As we come down here, you can see, the Feral Interactive recently held a Q&A on Reddit where they asked for various aspects of Grid Legends Deluxe Edition for Switch 2. And here's what they had to say. In terms of in-game options, we've expanded on the successful model we used in Grid Autosport for Switch 1. Grid Legends will have graphics and performance presets for playing in TV mode and handheld mode, where you can expect 30 FPS and up to 60 FPS. I wish it was just 60 FPS, but obviously there must be some dips, respectively, as well as dedicated, balanced, and battery saver presets exclusive to handheld mode. This allows you to choose the ideal combination of frame rate and fidelity. As for the graphics effects, the Switch 2 will retain all the fireworks, tire smoke, sparks, and explosions you already know from the mobile and other console versions. The developer also confirmed that there will be support for the GameCube controller for use with Grid Legends Deluxe Edition. So that's kind of cool. You don't see GameCube controller support in many third-party games, so it's just nice to see, and I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Another thing we could throw out there is we now know that Ark Survival Ascended is coming to Nintendo Switch 2. So the studio behind Ark Survival Ascended has confirmed it is actively working on a version of the game for the Switch 2, according to Jeremy Steiglitz, co-creative director and lead programmer at Wildcard, in an interview with WCCF Tech. But there's some interesting stuff with this. So he said porting the title to Nintendo's new console only really became feasible thanks to the performance improvements of Unreal Engine 5.7. According to Steiglitz, internal tests revealed that improvements in the new version of the graphics engine provided a performance gain of between 33 and 40% on the GPU. The developer highlighted that although the console has more addressable memory than the Series S, the biggest challenge lies in the graphics processing power to maintain advanced visual features such as Lumen and Nanite, which, hey, this will be like the first game using Unreal Engine with Lumen and Nanite on Nintendo Switch 2. But yeah, obviously when you see 5.7, you see a 33 to 40% improvement on the GPU, specifically for Switch 2. It feels like the 5.7 update might have been specifically for Switch 2. Instead, the team's goal is to deliver a visual experience close to that of the Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5 at lower resolutions, like 1080p, 1440p, and docked. However, achieving a stable frame rate remains an obstacle. Currently, the game runs around 20 FPS with Unreal Engine 5.7, and the studio is aiming for a solid 30. To fill this gap, Wildcard is exploring the use of frame interpolation, aka frame generation. This is also Another big thing here, the quote says, "We are about to try experimenting with frame generation, but the truth is, honestly, I don't know the results yet because it's not something we can just switch on." Frame generation is also one of those things that like doesn't, no one's doing that. As far as we're aware, the two DLSS presets that exist for Switch 2 do not offer frame generation. But he's saying they're going to be trying it on Switch 2, which means there must be a new DLSS version that's allowing this. Now, you might go, well, what version would that be? Probably some hybrid of 4.5. 4.5 recently got revealed. Frame generation is significantly better and less CPU and GPU, intensive in 4.5. So it's better and uses less resources. I can see a custom version of that maybe being implemented on Switch 2, maybe already there for developers. So maybe that's why they're saying, hey, we're going to try out frame gen because we can. We don't know how well it's going to work. Anyways, I explained the studio is in contact with NVIDIA to verify the feasibility of frame generation on new console hardware or alternatively porting AMD's open source FSR 3.1, which, yes, FSR works on any hardware. Unlike the original Ark Survival Evolved for the Nintendo Switch, which was a standalone product with limited content, the goal for Ark Survival Ascend is full integration. So they want full feature parity with all versions. So we'll have to obviously wait and see what happens with Ark Survival Evolved. What we don't really need to wait for, though, is how about some accessibility options for Switch 2? So we got some new ones. Hitachi announces Ruby Spotter voice recognition software for the Switch 2. So the multilingual software Ruby Spotter has been officially released by Hitachi Solutions Technology as a new interface option for the Switch 2. The tool allows developers to integrate voice commands using the console's built-in microphone. According to an announcement made by the Japanese company Hitachi Solutions Technology, the feature was made available this Wednesday, the 7th, local time. It serves as an intuitive alternative to using traditional buttons and controls. It supports 40 different languages, including Portuguese, which matters for this website because it's technically being translated from Portuguese. It offers high noise resistance as well. So again, this is just an accessibility option that's now available to game developers. That's always good, and it's available right now. Now, this very last one, I figure we should end with a bang. Something that is really exciting. And this comes from Nintendo. Now, Nintendo hasn't put a ton of leaks and rumors out in the universe. He's very, very careful about this. And him and I have talked about some of the leaks and rumors in the past before he's even said anything publicly. Some of the stuff I've said, some of the stuff he said. We've talked privately, and those conversations will remain private. But I know that he's pretty legit with his stuff, and he doesn't put a lot of things out into the universe. And the few things he has, specifically for stuff for Switch 2, has been right. And he's at it again, and this is the typical Nintendo way of doing it. Xenoblade. Makes you feel like this Xenoblade thing has to do with the next Nintendo Direct. And it wouldn't be like extremely shocking if there was a new Xenoblade coming from Monolith Soft. They do seem to be able to get Xenoblade games out quite frequently. Hell, we technically had like 4 of them, including the Definitive Edition and the port from Wii U. We had all of that come out on the Nintendo Switch. So I'm not going to be like extremely shocked if a new Xenoblade is in the next Direct and comes out this year or next year. We'll have to wait. But yeah, look, guys, you let me know what you think about this. I mean, I was hoping Monolith Soft might have their new IP ready, but if we're getting another Xenoblade, I'm not going to complain because Xenoblade's amazing. I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's just a rumor for now. All right, guys, that's going to do it. What a jam-packed episode. Told you there was a lot of stories. I kind of sped through a lot of it because there's just so much. You want more of my thoughts on all this, you can ask it on my next live stream where we do a Q&A, and you can ask me whatever you want about all these stories and all that. All right, guys? Thank you so much for tuning in, of course, and I will catch you in the next video.